podcast and have talks, and hopefully you guys are feeling like you're here with us. We thought one fun thing to do would to be sketch out what an event would look like to pull one off and to brainstorm it and everything that I've been to a lot of farm events. You've hosted farm events. Let's put our collective minds together and go, how could we make the very best possible event while we're making a profit, and that would make people want to come back for another one.
Yeah, and maybe even like if event seems daunting to the homesteader, like view it as like it's a workshop, right?
Yep.
Like view it as a workshop. For me, when I think of event, I immediately think like big. You know what I mean? And I have a lot of events / workshops I want to pull off in the 2024 season. And so
And this is
a fun one.
This is where I feel like my specialty is, because I really like to combine hospitality with everything that we do within farming. When you're inviting people, and especially strangers, to your place for the first time, there's a list of checklists that you need to go down to make sure that event is successful.
Yeah.
Because it's real easy, especially on a farm. Things are uncomfortable. It's going to be, this particular event that we're talking about is going to be in the summer. There's a lot of stuff you need to think about for people's safety and comfort, and to make sure they want to come back. So I think we've dialed down that you're looking at having a dahlia event. And if we're going to deconstruct this from the very beginning, we have to think about when is the best time when are the dahlias going to be ready?
Yeah, so we'll plant dahlias the end of May. We'll have them all summer and into the fall. And I just think about, I've gone to farm events in the dead of summer and they're miserable, and I think about harvesting flowers and then wilting and that affecting vase life. And so for me, I think I envision this towards the end of summer through fall, because we will still have dahlias into the fall. So maybe like August through beginning of November.
Let's just assume at this point, for the sake of this exercise, we're looking at September, October, November, because August is just brutal.
Yeah.
September, October, November. Dicing that down to, we're looking at doing 4 events.
Yeah.
Okay. So 4 events over 3 months. I think the first thing we have to do is consider how many, because people are going to, how much do I charge for tickets?
Right.
What all am I going to have to do? And it's going to start with, what is the total capacity that you're comfortable safely having people coming, starting with the parking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, parking's our biggest issue. So we probably, I think I would feel comfortable having like 15 people at this event.
So 15 people.
In hopes that some would be friends and they ride together. Like, we're not actually having 15 cars, although we could fit that if we needed to. But that would kind of be my hope, is that girlfriends would buy tickets together and travel, together for this.
We can look at tactics to kind of ensure that happens here in a bit. But 15 people, 4 events. So we're looking at 60 total tickets. For the entire series, what would you feel like this was worth my time? This made a profit, and we can figure out how we can turn whatever that number looks like into something valuable for those people. So 60 tickets to sell. Mm-hmm. How much do you want to make off this?
Yeah, so I envision it being like a 2.5 hour event, 2 hour, 2.5 hour. I would need to make a minimum of probably 1,000, preferably 2,000, like
per event.
Yeah.
So we're looking at $8,000. I like to look at it over the course of the event, because you already told me in May you're going to start planting this out, which means you need to figure out at the end of the year, minus all the additional sales you want to do off of this, what is this going to take?
Right.
And so if we look at an $8,000 return on the investment, that's going to be part of a much larger planting out, because you're going to be dividing dahlias out, you're going to be selling the other blooms. So this is almost in addition to the other income that these dahlias are going to make. And so I'm looking at 60 tickets divided by 8,000. It's $133 a ticket.
Okay.
So now we have to go, does that, on surface level, gut check, how does that make you feel?
And I think that would depend on what's
the deliverable here?
Yeah. So I would want that number to be down. I would like to be at, when I think about them taking a $30 market bouquet with them, right? So there's the $30 just to cover what they would have to buy it for, anywhere else. Offering tea, lemonade, charcuterie, refreshments, creating an experience where they can take photos on the farm. I would think we need to get that ticket price like to $60. $30 for the bouquet, and then you have $30 for me, $35 maybe for me teaching. For me, I like to set the price to where people don't think about it, right?
Right.
It's like going to lunch or going, this isn't my scene, but people spend a lot of money like going and getting their nails done. That probably costs more than that. I don't know. But I want it to be something that,
On the surface level, we're looking at there's a monetary exchange on this particular case for a hard good being the bouquet,
right.
and the rest of it is going to be wrapped up in experience. And to ratchet that price up, we're having to look at what's the quality of that experience.
Right.
So let's kind of think about that. And people, I think that gives people room to scale that up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Some people may just want to do this for the exposure, or for the experience,
Yeah.
or for the whatever. But if we're taking a look at, let's make a profit. If you took the time to make a $30 bouquet, what are you actually making off of that? It's not $30. Part of this ticket sale is covering your costs. The rest is going to be the profit. I do think 133, probably stretching it a little
Mm-hmm.
bit for this market.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that in a minute. You're saying you want to be somewhere around 60. I think we can stretch it to 90. So how do we make this a $90 ticket proposition? So it's already going to be in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
We got 15 people. We need to immediately think about the comfort of the people because it's a summer physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have place on property that has that much shade?
Yes, we actually do. So where we would be, well, one, they would be harvesting the dahlias in the tunnel with a shade cloth. So it's automatically going to be cooler in there. But I would also plan this event later in the evening. I love to hit golden hour,
Mm-hmm.
right? To where it makes it ideal for us to harvest. It also is a fun, night, like, Saturday night activity that you do with your friends. And then we've got string lights everywhere. And so for me, we have the place that I will be constructing it. We built kind of a seating area. So they'll be able to sit and watch what we're doing. There's a big oak tree that provides a lot of shade. There's swings that they can swing on. Like, we've set up this whole aesthetic area to be able to teach well. And then golden hour, there'll be, fields of sunflowers they can take photos. And there's all these other areas on the farm for photo props that would be beautiful when I think about creating an experience for people. They're walking around sipping on their cocktail, maybe their lemonade, eating some charcuterie fresh from the farm. Like, you are charging and they are coming for the experience that they are finding there, right? It's not their normal. It's not something they do all the time. It's different.
So, and that's how we get to $90. Food opportunities, memories, the bouquet, knowledge that you're passing down, the photos. And so if we're going to build this 5-star experience, if we're going to have a place for photos, do they want to do it with their phone and they're just having to do the arm stick out thing?
Mm-hmm.
Or is somebody here on farm ready with your good camera to take a high quality photo that you can then email to them later?
Yeah.
Because it won't take you but a few minutes to edit a half a dozen. This is not a professional photo shoot,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more than they would have had on their own. They're welcome to take as many pictures as they want, but you're walking away from here from maybe even go the extra step and have these printed and mailed to them, because that's not that much extra work on your end.
Right.
You batch this up, you edit 15 photos out of whack, you mail it, you send that off to Walgreens or CVS, that's printed, and then for the cost of a couple of stamps, you've easily ratcheted up that ticket price.
And then again, you are making that experience go even longer, right? So once they have left with that bouquet and they're still kind of on that high, say maybe a week later, they get to relive that again and remember, wow, this was memorable. I love that. Look how happy we were. I really would like to do this again. And so, yeah, I definitely think there are low ticket things you can do that can drive your ticket price and just create a more long-lasting experience that makes people want to keep coming back for that.
And when it comes to the food, it's not like you're going to go to Kroger and pick this stuff up. It's stuff from the farm.
Absolutely.
This is a home meal that you're going to have.
Yeah, sourdough bread, sourdough crackers, prosciutto from our pork, and vegetables grown on the farm, homemade hummus. And those are things too that it is my labor involved, but I have everything already producing on my farm to be able to make that spread. Charcuteries are actually something we do all the time. I ferment our food so I can add all of these different depths and elements. And that to me is just going that extra mile. If they want a refreshment, we will state that, hey, there's going to be drinks and refreshments, but they're not expecting to eat a full meal.
Right. And I think when it comes to the refreshments, given the fact that this is a memorable event, totally hospitality driven, as soon as they get out of the car, they're greeted with something to drink because you want them, you subconsciously want them to be hydrating before they even get in the tunnel. That way they don't get the little woozies that non-hoop house people may not be ready for.
Yeah.
And you anticipate that need. You anticipate, hey, water in, water's going to go out. Perhaps provide, you don't necessarily want 15 strangers tromping through the house. So how much is a porta potty rental? You know, having facilities on site adds to your cost, but that's why we need to ratchet this ticket sales up to $90 plus. I know when we've had events, you know, it was like back in the day, $65 per porta potty. You guys live a little further out. I could see it being more.
Yeah.
But knowing that, hey, one weekend we're going to bring in $2,000, $120 fee for a portable toilet that's clean, that you don't additionally have to stock your bathroom and worry about all that. It's a fair trade-off.
Well, and something else too that we've thought about, right? Because we have put a lot of emphasis on wanting to do these events and workshops this year. We bought a Sprinter van and we renovated it. And we are in the process of having it painted and decorating it, and it's going to sit behind our sunflower field. It's going to have a mural on it. It's going to be really pretty. It's going to be a backdrop for people to come to the farm and take photos. And something we can do when we think about, we are going to maybe twice a year allow that to be rented out for, you know, I mean, there's a lot of vetting process there, but that could even be one of those things. We've already made the investment in this. We will use it to travel. But there's a bathroom. So it's like, hey, instead of even renting a porta potty that I don't really love that, it's like, hey, you can go into the Sprinter van that's right behind the sunflower field if you need to cool off for a minute or you need to go to the restroom. Just make sure you lock the door. And that's another thing, that they're not going outside of this designated area. And this is a really cool thing. We're also advertising for something that we're going to offer later down the road. It's a cool backdrop.
And that's how we start these repeat ticket sales.
Yeah.
If they come out here and have the best time, then guess what? They're on your email list.
Yeah.
You got to sell 60 tickets. You know, you're going to invite some friends and family. You're probably going to give a couple of tickets away for free to, you know, heavy influencers, real estate agents, you know, people that know a large group of people within the community that like this kind of thing. But the ability to sell out 80% of your tickets without having to lift a finger but pressing an email button, it's a big deal. But you're not going to have that if people don't have like the best time.
Right.
So we're looking at we've covered the photos, added value, and we've looked at ways to ratchet up that added value, either by providing a better camera or printing stuff out, and to your case, reliving that next event, in which you should, as they get that picture, the flyer for the next event with a QR code should be in there to go, oh yeah, this is great. You know, they're having another one. Easy.
Yeah.
Because who's not going to want to go, we had a great time at the end of the summer. Oh, look, now they're doing a fall foliage situation, or now they're going to have a Christmas thing going on out there. Being able to plan the next one and get ready for, and actually pre-sell, maybe even discounted tickets before they leave for the next one, means you can already start figuring out the next event. It's easy to get ahead of yourself on these, isn't it?
Oh, it is. That's why I've had to like be strategic. Like, how many of these can I actually do? But I've been dreaming of the Dahlia Days for 2 years now, since we started growing dahlias, and we just weren't there yet. We also had all these other areas on the farm. We wanted to transition to dahlias to where we were creating that experience everywhere they looked on the back part of our property. We had a patch of dried flowers, filler flowers, or sunflowers, or dahlias. That's a lot of things. When you think about charging a higher ticket price, I think about, what do I want? I want to go somewhere and feel something. I want to leave inspired, right? That's where sky's the limit, right? And if I go somewhere and yeah, maybe they taught well, but I was lacking that wanting to be better, wanting to create, like, that's what I'm trying to create. I'm not trying to sell the most tickets. I'm trying to inspire someone who doesn't live this lifestyle, to see the beauty and the value in it and say, hey, you know what? I'm never going to be a homesteader. I'm never going to be a farmer. But what they are doing is so impactful. then I want to go and support that again and again. And so for me, I'd rather keep it more intimate and spend 2 years planning it, to where I am really making an impact in these people's life versus just trying to,
And at the
turn a
same time,
profit.
and this is another way I like to view hospitality, is like you need to eliminate awkwardness.
Yeah.
So let's think about all the opportunities you have to be awkward. I did it today. I had to call Nathan. Hey, the directions I had were not like I was 2 blocks away or the equivalent of 2 blocks away. I just didn't see the place. But if we're going to do this, we need clear directions
Yeah.
on how to get from every town that you think you may pull from. This
Mhm.
is how you get here from Little Rock. This is how you get here from Conway. Have the directions easy, ready to go, that kind of thing. We've discussed the porta potty issue. We've discussed they have refreshments that there's probably going to be, I'm not going to say a heavier meal, but a more substantial grazing of
Mhm.
sorts in between or during the particular event. And then you mentioned wanting to have this at night. And I immediately think, how do we get these people out of here
Yeah.
that's not awkward? And I think having a designated, this is, and I like to see the event smack dab in the middle. We talked about a couple hours. I think for something like this and what you're trying to pull off, up to 4 hours may be allowed. So like, hey, gates open at 4, or I got to dial down the year, so still daylight savings times if we still do that. Who knows? So let's just say, hey, gates open at 6.
Mhm.
The event will start at 7. Come, let's talk, let's meet, knowing that everything is prepared so you and Nathan have the time to sit and talk. Maybe the
Mhm.
intern is doing all the photo stuff and the check-in procedure, whatever that looks like. You parked and here's the refreshment and here's
Yeah.
where everything is, and we're going to start at 7. Issue them the snips and the bucket or whatever the case may be. But also at the back end, having them, how you go to an event and everybody's like more relaxed after they know each other a
Yeah.
little bit. That's what's going to happen here,
Mhm.
especially if we like have a cocktail or two along the way,
Yeah.
by doing pre-batch cocktails or a bottle of something. But having a 9 o'clock, this event is over,
Yeah.
and knowing that you have your parting words planned about 8:40
Yeah.
to go, thank you so much for coming out, if there's whatever the case may be,
Right.
but having that pre-speech done and in your pocket and in your mind, that way you're not going, ugh, do I say something now, do I say something then?
Right. And then also just having whatever teams there with you go ahead and they're starting to remove the refreshments, right? Like it's very obvious that people need to be shuffling out. And I do like that idea. I think stating it very clear, this is the time of the event, giving people an hour to arrive. And even too, like if this hospitality community building, that for us is the goal of all of this, is to teach a skill and also connect people to what we're doing and to each other. And even just, I envision us sitting around, like asking somebody, hey, everybody come over here, let's gather for a minute. You might have come here with a friend, you might have come by yourself, you might all be strangers, but let's go around, let's share who you are and try to find a buddy to go and y'all harvest together. And the idea is that they come in strangers, but they leave as friends, right? And they feel like not only did they have a wonderful experience, did they take home a beautiful bouquet, did they get gorgeous photos, they found a friend that they would have never known before. And that's really what we're doing, right? Is we're cultivating a space for people who maybe would never interact to be in the same place and say, hey, there's commonality here. Like we could be friends.
And in order for that to happen, you have to facilitate like an environment that people would feel that. I don't feel that in an environment if I've got a bunch of kids running around
Right.
while I'm trying to like, this is very much an adult
Yes.
event. And so I think that has to be said up front. And I think you for sure can ratchet up the price of the ticket then, hey, this is an adult only event.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you say it or not, that's implied that there may be a cocktail or two, people are going to enjoy it. You can relax without having to worry about somebody else's kid being awkward. They always are.
Right. Well, and yeah, I envision all of our events being adult only. There might be one specialty thing we do where it's family night, right? And we've got Bago set up and we have all these various games. And I don't actually know that that's the scene that we would want to do. But say maybe, you're trying to sketch out one of these workshops for yourself and you have 5 kids and you're like, hey, I can't keep my kids away. So why should I tell other people? Create your event maybe around that.
And that's the fun thing about this is like homesteading is so centered around family,
Yes.
and we're trying to in some ways exclude a little bit. All I'm saying is don't be afraid to put limits on your customers.
Yeah.
It's the most freeing thing you can do. You have to believe that If you tell customers it's this and only that, but still embodying everything that they would
Mm-hmm.
ever need in an event or a product or a situation, uh, it's excellent communication is all it is.
Right. And I mean, the truth is, for me, I spend a lot of time with my family. I love my family, but I couldn't execute the event that I would want to if I was playing mom, right? Those are two different hats that go on at two different times. And so if I'm trying to charge a high ticket price and create an experience for someone, and I've got a kid screaming and running, that's affecting their experience. And so those are things to be mindful of. What are you trying to create? I know in my mind what I'm trying to create. I would have a babysitter for my kids. They would be inside. If they needed me, the babysitter could come out and say, hey, could you step away for a minute? Or I could then have Nathan. And when we think about your labor cost, right, I have already spoke with a lot of my friends who have asked to volunteer. They would love to be a part of something like this, to be able to come and not have to pay that ticket price. And so all of my helpers, right? My volunteers, who's going to be greeting people, who's going to be part. I would say I would at least need Nathan for sure just to help me host it. But then I would feel comfortable with the Dahlia Day specifically having two other people on board, right? Someone's greeting, handing out snips and buckets. Then we have someone else who is maybe saying, hey, can I take your photo? Or do you need anything? Or can I freshen up your drink? And that's actually not any cost I'm out. These are just friends who have asked, can you give me the opportunity to be a part of something like this? Let them make an arrangement. Let them take it home. That's worth it to them.
And the thing about having the photos is not only is it good for the people, and that's something they can take away, but that's you're building up your stock of marketing material for the next and the next and the next. Totally work. Even if you actually hired a professional photographer and made that arrangement, which made, hey, I need you to come do this, and then you have access to the farm. We talked about farm access for photographers before.
Yeah.
Trading that out,
Yeah.
paying for it. Either way, you're going to get the value.
And thankfully, my best friend is a photographer. She took all the photos for my book, and that's the arrangement that we have, is that she can bring people to the farm for photos, whether that's our greenhouse or our sunflower field. And essentially, whenever I need photos, she is available. It's just good advertisement for her as well. And so, yeah, there's so many other ways that you can cut your costs down, especially if you're a homesteader, and you think about creating a grazing table, just changing it from, hey, we're going to have refreshments to, hey, we're going to have cocktails and there's going to be a grazing table.
The price of the ticket just went
Right.
up.
And it is. You have to elevate it a little, make sure you have fancy charcuterie boards. But know your audience. I know my audience, my target audience so well because I am my target audience,
Right.
which is a really sweet space to be in, to where I know what I want. I know what would create an experience for me. I know what would inspire me. I know what would make me want to come back. And so I create an event I would want to go to. And I know the caliber and the level that that's at. And yours might just be a family event, right? And that's okay too.
Well, and if we think about these ticket prices, this is something I have to constantly remind, especially farmers markets, farmers, is you cannot put your own assumptions on pricing. So for instance is, if you have a market farm and you are used to just tomatoes being everywhere, a tomato inherently loses its value. But where it's not lost its value is at the market, for people actively coming to the market to look for that.
Mm.
When you allow people to beat you up on price and talk you down off your price, or you go, I'm not comfortable. I can't believe how many times I see the statement, I don't feel comfortable taking advantage of my buyers. So I'm not going to charge as much, because they don't understand all their back end costs. What we can't do is go, I think that our target market may not be able to stomach $90. They may think $200 is a price. They may think $90 is double what it should be. You're proving yourself through word of mouth and through your own marketing material. This is probably going to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And so another thing I like at events is like a little takeaway, a surprise takeaway. So you got the pictures, you got the food, you got the event itself, the bouquet, and then something so easy. Maybe they leave with an additional bag of herbs or other flowers, or we've talked about a CSA share before, just like a mini. If they all went away with a zucchini and a piece of lettuce and a couple of tomatoes and a couple of peppers that they weren't expecting, you're pushing that value. They didn't even buy that.
Yeah.
But they're walking, any little tiny thing that they may have questioned, or been unsure of, you're maybe making up for that or making it, oh yeah, this is for sure worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Even just kind of like a little goodie basket, sending them out the door. And what I think about here is we have like a beautiful local bakery, right? And I think about getting a dessert from the local bakery.
15 cookies.
Right. Or, I mean, they make these cute little cheesecakes and like they buy my edible flowers for me. And so that's a way of like, hey, I could have them make a dessert specific. When you think about, capping it at 15, that's really not that expensive, but you're sending them out. And that when you think about wrapping it up too, like you give your farewell speech, say, hey, as you guys collect, your bouquets, make sure you go see Jenny. She's going to give you guys something like a little parting gift, and they grab the dessert, they get in their car, and they're like, oh my gosh, this was so perfect.
You know what the great part about that is? You've given them a second opportunity to, hey, in case you haven't turned in your snips,
yeah,
don't be walking away with my snips.
Right.
But hey, make sure you turn in your snips, and we got a little goodie bag for you.
Right. I think that does just kind of elevate it. And something that you didn't really ask me, I'm just going to this is something I struggled with a lot starting out, is wanting to give everything away, right? Like not feeling like I was valuable enough to charge something, and then I'd have that one person question it. I've been doing this for so long, and there are, the Karens of the world. I can't believe you're doing this. You're robbing people. It is a job, right? What you are doing, even if you're homesteading and you're wanting to do this, it's for the purpose, right? We're talking about diversifying your income and bringing in income. Those are not your people. I always tell people,
you'll never convince them.
No, and as much as you want to attract your ideal audience, you also want to repel those people who aren't. And I used to get so shook by those people who said I was greedy or you've changed or whatever. And it would just gut me. And I'd be like, I can't charge for this. I can't do this. And it would wreck me. And I would realize, I'd be like, you are not my person. And would you go to any other business or establishment and walk in and say, how dare you charge and try to bring in income for being a business? No. So I'm not going to give them the opportunity to do that. I had someone recently email me. We did a launch and they're like, I cannot believe you would charge this right at Christmas. Do you not think I need to be able to buy presents for my family? And I read it, and one, I felt bad for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And before, it would have gutted me. How did I launch this at the wrong time? Is my price too high? And I thought, you know what? I am really sorry that you have found yourself in this position to where you cannot do both things, buy your family Christmas and do this. And I'm really sorry. Like, there'll be other opportunities to come around. But also, there are a lot of opportunities I have to say no to. I don't get to do everything I want to do. But you don't get to put that guilt and that shame on me because I created a really great offer, a really great product. I also marked it way less than what it should have been.
I mean,
right?
we said the initial thing needs to be around $133.
Right.
Now we're yo-yoing back.
Right.
And I feel comfortable at 60. I'm pushing you to 90, and I'm hoping you can look at this, go, this thing needs to be a $100 ticket.
Right. And so just do not just know, this is something I told myself. Literally every day I'd wake up and be like, as much as I need to attract, I also need to repel. And those people who are being negative and they're making comments, you are just fading out those people who are not actually your core people who are going to support you long term, and you don't need that. And that was a really powerful tool for me in business when I could look at that and just be like, this doesn't affect me. I feel good about what I'm doing. I feel confident in the price. I know who I'm reaching, and you're not that person for me, and that's okay.
One other tool that you can do, and this is this gives you so much confidence, I can't even tell you. You sell a ticket, and you make sure that at the event in your pocket, you have enough to cover 2 tickets in cash, where you don't have to make change. So if that person does come up and make this issue, go, hey, yeah, let's talk over here for a second about it. And you go, I'm so sorry that you didn't feel like this is worth it. I want to fully refund your ticket price. And, thanks for coming out.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that.
And that, because what you do is you're like, this actually didn't cost you anything because I'm giving you an out right now.
Yeah.
That's either going to completely change how they feel about things, or there's no sense in arguing about it in the moment. It's like, I'm sorry, this is not what you thought it was. Here's all your money back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. And I've also done that too. People who have made such a protest about it. But like, hey, I'd really like to just give this to you. Like if you really want to be able to experience this and finances is what is holding you back, like let me just give this to you. And they would never take it, right? Because most of the time money isn't the issue. They're just looking for something to protest.
But sacrifice goes both ways, right?
Mhm.
Like you have sacrificed a lot to have this and to have this event. What are you're sacrificing your weekends, you're sacrificing from May until the last event. Every single second that you have flowers out there, there's critters, there's pests, there's rains, there you've sacrificed all this time on the front end so they could have the spectacular event. And if they can't sacrifice an extra $20 to what they thought it should be, it's not a good match.
Right. And I would also pre-sell all the tickets too, right?
Oh, for
so
sure.
it'd all
No,
be
you
online. So the people coming, unless they just did think the experience was not great, they are comfortable with the price. They feel good about that. And I also think having that too, to where they're buying online, they decided to make that on their own instead of coming and being like, oh, this is too
Yeah,
expensive.
you can never ever do
Mhm.
at door
Right.
ticket sales.
Ever.
Now, what you should consider is if you have a place for 15, maybe know that you can fit an extra 2 because inevitably, and this happened at our last event, people brought extra people.
Mm,
Have a way to collect that money,
mm.
have a way to make change, whatever the case may be. But this is a ticketed event,
Yeah.
and we only have so much.
And non-refundable tickets.
Non-refundable tickets, pass it on. Maybe you can use it for the next event, but but having a little bit extra food or a couple more bottles or a few more snips to account for that. The best thing is you never need it and you got some leftovers the next day.
Right.
The worst thing that could happen is you're not prepared and the rest of the group has to sacrifice a little less or borrow snips or whatever.
Yeah.
You also said something earlier that made me thinking that you can't be a mother to either some of the fact that like you're having to watch over your folks and people's kids that they bring in. But in some ways, you do have to be a mother because what happens when people that aren't used to holding snips have snips?
Yeah.
They'll cut themselves.
Right.
And so do you need to run into, and this is like, I think people may think, well, this is ridiculous. This is stuff I've seen happen at events. Medical stuff has had to happen. Somebody drops something, glass breaks. Do you have something to clean it up? Anything that can happen on a long enough timeline is going to happen. I like to use the term crash cart for stuff like this. So you have a box that you use for events that has anything and everything you would possibly need. Change, credit card reader, a backup to that, a little medical kit, something to clean, paper towels go a long way for a lot of different reasons. And just having that stuff on hand, again, I cut myself. I don't want to ask for it. You know how people are. I don't want to ask for this or I don't want to ask for where the bathroom is. Addressing their needs up front, which could be done upon check-in. I do like a check-in procedure because it checks a lot of stuff.
Well, and even when you're welcoming, right, and you're trying, that would be a good opportunity to just be like, hey, we're just going to do like proper etiquette. This is how you open, this is how you close, be mindful of this. Like you really do, especially when you're not inviting homesteaders, farmers, growers. You're inviting more than likely city slickers.
You need to tell them what shoes to wear out here. Don't come out here in high heels, ladies.
Like come in your boots, or maybe bring boots to change into. So the more specific you can be to create a better opportunity and experience for them, especially for me, right? I'm not marketing to other homesteaders or growers. I'm marketing to people in the city, people who don't have this lifestyle. Maybe they're lawyers, maybe they're, nurses, they're in a clinic all day. They want to just get out and experience something. And I'm knowing this is so foreign for them. So to do a quick, like, hey, here's the etiquette of using a pruner, making sure you wear the appropriate shoes, that's going to make their experience so much better than wearing high heels and sinking in, the dirt every few seconds they walk.
And I think it's like, again, I'm going to extremes, but that's just where my mind goes. Let's say that lawyer comes out, and let's say that they happen to bring some shoes, and they're not used to the dirt, and they're going to get in their $200,000 car. Something you probably already have on property, which is going to go miles, is, hey, if anybody got dirty, as you check out, get your little goodie bag. If you need a little square of butcher paper so your car doesn't get dirty, just let us know.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to take you up on it.
Yeah.
But for the one person that in their back of their mind is going, I just had this car cleaned, like all that stuff, which is also like, hey, in the email, shoes to wear. This is, we're going to start promptly. Reminding people that we start promptly goes a long way.
Yeah.
And knowing that I wouldn't say anything about the butcher paper, but going, hey, you're liable to get a little dusty out here. just give them a heads up.
Yeah.
Anything that they may need. And like I said, if we want to give somebody a 5-star experience worthy of them telling other people about, which is the goal here, because
Right.
each event builds and builds and builds, you almost have to give them a 10-star experience.
Yeah. Well, I think that would be the goal too, right? Is like, that's what I would want, and that's what I am aiming for. And now, even just like the reason we did this exercise, right, was to give people things to think about, like, what's your topic, what's your, capacity, what's your price, what's your offerings, what's your added, your ads on, stuff like that. And it's like, wow, I feel really confident now. I can take what we have scribbled out here, the ideas I had, put it on paper. Now I know exactly what I need. I know the amount of people I need to be involved. I can figure out pretty quickly what my cost is going to be for that. So I know how many sales do I need, to break even on this, and when do I start turning profit on this?
And that allows you to go, okay, how 60 tickets, how many can we pre-sell off my list? You're probably only really going to have to go out and find what, 30% of actually going to, running a Facebook ad, putting that hypothetical flyer. Where are you going to put the flyers at? You're going to go to the coffee shop that I went to this morning that you already have a good relationship. That's the kind of people that's likely to be out there anyway.
Right.
A couple of well-placed flyers. Again, you're not trying to attract everybody in this area, but a couple of select flyers in a couple of these towns that are around here, that's going to sell out the rest of your tickets.
Right.
And what happens on the next event that you do, you have a list of 60 plus people on an email list that had the best time ever. You hit send, and the next thing you know, your Eventbrite is full, or whatever service you use.
Right.
You're sold out months in advance. And that's the goal. We're doing a similar podcast with Carl Binger, Bootstrap Farm. Well, I say he's with Bootstrap Farm. He's part of the family for sure. But he asked me, what would you do if you had to start farming again? And it's these events, and it doesn't have to be over the top, but it does have to be well thought out. Everything that we've talked about up to this point is only half the equation, and it's not going to take an equal amount of time to talk about the other half. But let's look at that curriculum. Yeah, you're comfortable with the price now. You know that you can pre-sell. You know you can easily get rid of the rest of the tickets. That is, and the personnel involved, and what the deliverables will be, and everything that goes into it. Let's talk about the curriculum. I think a lot of people might get hung up on that. This is to me, the easiest part, and I'm going to go through the exercise with you. Let's start with, we've already figured out this is likely to be a 4-hour event. The actual teaching of the bouquet itself, Nathan's going to cover, this is how you cut a tuber, this is how you don't step on plants, and this is how not to cut your finger off. But you're going to teach them about a bouquet. So there's 2 parts to that equation. There's the bouquet itself, and then there's the aftercare. Yeah. And the aftercare is great because that takes up a little bit more of that teaching time. So part of the teaching is cutting, and maybe how to put it in the basket so they don't get messed up. That's covered. Yep. The next thing, and I'm going to ask you, what's the next step?
Yeah, so once they have cut it, which I will kind of facilitate, right? I will tell them, even though we are calling them dahlia days, I want their dahlias to be their primary, their focal flowers. But then we have, again, I talked about having these different sections on the farm, so they are going to get that experience of not just being in a tunnel. So I'm going to say, hey, I would like you guys to harvest 6 dahlias or 5 dahlias. This is going to be the focal flower. And then you can come over to our filler flower section and go ahead and cut 15 of whatever is in this area. And those are going to be your filler flowers. And then go over to this section and harvest, 10 or 15. And this is going to be our greenery. And this is going to be, eucalyptus, things like this. And so I'm giving them areas and I'm telling them how many of each so that we're not overcutting, we're not wasting. And so that will be part of the teaching too. Like when I think about building out my curriculum, this is part of it, right? We're having a section. This is how you cut. You want to make sure your stem length is 12 to 18 inches. So even have an example, right? Like some people may not know how long is 12 to 18 inches. Like, hey, this is go ahead and have some pre-cut to show them as an example. Again, it's just taking that question out. Maybe someone doesn't feel comfortable asking that question, thinking about what potentially would they ask and go ahead and answer that for them. And so that would be part of the teaching. And then I would go ahead and tell them, once you've collected this all, mosey over to this area and we'll get started. And then I would say I would probably have 20 to 30 minutes showing them. This is going to be a market bouquet, so we're not talking about a big, elaborate bouquet. We're talking about a market bouquet, which is much simpler. Usually you just have those focal fillers and greenery. It's composed of, maybe 20 blooms all together. And so we'll talk about the fundamental structure of this is how many focal flowers you're going to need to pull. And we're going to do this. We'll talk about the color wheel, like they might have gravitated, but that's really important. And even just how you hold the bouquet and rotate it as you're adding different fillers in. So we'll add some focal flowers and we'll add some filler flowers and we're going to turn it a little bit. We're going to add our greenery and we're just talking through, but the way I like to teach is very interactive. So I would also tell them, hey, as I'm doing this, if you guys have questions, go ahead. Like, I want to make sure you feel confident about the bouquet that you're leaving with. You feel good about it. You think it's beautiful. And I'm sure there will be a lot of questions like, hey, am I doing this right? And then I can go around and answer those questions and use that as an example to teach the other students who have bought tickets. And so that's a lot of what I envision. And then when we're done, I would like to go through and say, all right, now that we've made it, a big part of making bouquets and arrangements is your own creativity. So let's look and see how we all harvested from the same areas, but just how different each of these arrangement was, because then it gives them ideas moving forward. Or maybe if I would have done this, it would look different. And then again, it's just the way of building that community. And then we would move into aftercare. So we'd wrap it in a sleeve just because it's really cute. It would be stamped with our Whispering Willow Farm logo. And then we would have mason jars filled up for everyone to be able to put it in. It's easy to transport. It will fit into their cup holder in their car. They're not worried about any of that. And I'll just simply state, this is how long this is good for. This is how often you will need to, replace your water. And then some of those too, they could actually hang upside down and dry, and they're multi-purpose. And so again, just talking about real quick, you don't want to overwhelm them with information. You don't want them to feel like it's a pass or fail. What if I kill all these? Like, hey, everything you did here is perfect. But if you want to go that extra step, maybe take those straw flowers out, hang them upside down when you get home, and you can use them in something this fall or winter.
And I don't know, so I'm asking, would this be an appropriate time that they could actually take a single dahlia tuber with them?
So they would not take. So the tubers are what you use to grow the plant.
Right. I'm just curious if part of that take home package, if a small piece of that could go, so in the package you're going to get something to take home later.
So
that may be unfeasible. For
no. So we would dig dahlias up after the frost.
Fair enough.
But we are working with someone right now for seeds, so we could easily, like in their farewell package, have a package of seeds if they chose to do something like that.
Well, through what you talked about, let's take a look at that. We're defining a market bouquet and what that actually is.
Mm-hmm.
We have focal, we have filler, we have the greenery, we have potential add-ons, maybe ribbon or string or whatever the case may be. We have the wrap, we have a vase, which is one category, and then we have aftercare and potentially drying. And then at the end of it, during the event, that photographer needs to be taking pictures.
Right.
After the event, they all need to pose with their thing that they made. So that's like 8 categories that you already knew off the top of your head. I did not have to quiz you on that. That's information that is all that you have. But if you get stuck, all I'm saying is that's a good hour. 6 to 8 topics, that's 10 minutes a piece per topic. That's all most people are going to be able to comfortably talk. You and I have to talk all the time. Those muscles are there, and even I'm terrible at it. But you can do an hour with just what's in your head. But if you get stuck, all I'm saying you can do is think of 8 things about what you're fixing to teach. You could have, if I said think of 8 things, you could have come up with 8 things.
Right.
And I said come up with 3 things about each one of those categories. That's 3 sentences. That's just a few minutes eating up. And then come up with 1 or 2 details about each one of those. So you're looking at 8, 2 or 3, and then 1 or 2. 8 categories, 2 to 3 points, 1 to 2 details.
Yeah.
That's an hour.
Yeah.
That's in your head that that you make that grid out and you have your thing planned.
And the great thing is too, is because I'm teaching something I'm skilled at, right? It's not like I'm preparing for this. Like I have an idea, right? Like I know it, but there's no stress involved. I know this stuff. It's what I do every single day. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it feels comfortable. And hopefully, if that person is creating that event or workshop, it's around something they feel confident and comfortable in, to where there is the expediting of getting it all set up, but there's not the, oh, I have to learn this thing to teach, and what if I teach it wrong? No, this, stuff like the back of your hand, and just feel confident in that. And so for me, yeah, I could explain to them what a filler flower is. What are some other filler flowers or focal flowers? Like, there's so much you can build on this, and they're all going to be interacting as well too. You're not just going to have to be sitting there, talking to them for an hour. Like, we're all interacting. They're asking questions. Like, just don't put a lot of stress on yourself on that, because I think it'll flow a lot better than people might realize.
Well, and the good thing about this whole entire talk, up until we got to the curriculum, everything that we mentioned is a universal template for any event that you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we discussed has to happen, or should or could happen, for each event. How many tickets? How much do we want to make? How are we going to sell them? You could have done a $30 ticket, but they don't have any of that other stuff.
Right.
But what happens is you make less money and they don't want to come to the next one.
Yeah.
So just by doing a few extra steps that, yes, it all kind of adds up, but by far the value proposition for that client and for what your return is versus what you're having to put into it, especially by buying in bulk,
yeah,
is going to knock that down. And I think very quickly we gave that, 8 topics, 2 to 3 points on that topics, 1 to 2 details. That's now a formula that anything you want to teach, that could go to beekeeping, that can go to animal husbandry, that seed starting,
yeah,
let's harvest, let's ferment, that is universally applicable on both sides of the equation. What's the details of having an event? What's the details of the curriculum? How do we get them out the door?
Yeah.
And how do we sell for the next one? We've covered all that in this, how long we've been talking.
Well, and you do it once, and then it's a rinse and repeat, right? And you might have to work out a few kinks and adjust some things, but come, that last workshop that you do of the year, I mean, this is a well-oiled machine. You know what I mean? Like, we know what to do. We know where our people need to be. We know when we need to make these transitions. And that's the great thing. I like figuring out those few select events you want to do and just keep redoing those events. I almost like having a series, right? So it's like the Dahlia Days will be for a series. They can only get it for a select time of the year. And then we're going to move into something else. And we'll have one farm-to-table event. That's going to take a lot more money to produce, a lot more input. So we're only going to do that once a year. And then we're going to move into, something else, a Christmas market. And that's something that's seasonal. So figure out those things that you can have multiple events that are similar, you know what I mean? Or even still just kind of change out that topic that you're talking about.
My last bit of advice I would do, and this is what we did for our on-farm brunches, is I only sold 2 tickets at a time. You could buy more.
Yeah.
But you had to buy multiples of 2. And what that does is somebody sees it and wants to go, and then they have to enlist a friend.
Yeah. And
those 2 are, oh, yeah, you know how it is. Mm-hmm. Hey, you want to go do this? Of course I want to go do this. And they push each other to make the purchase. And sometimes one of the persons that may not have wanted to go, maybe that's the one that can't afford it. And the other one's like, I got you, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But what it does is now instead of having to sell 60 total tickets, you only got to sell 30.
Yeah.
And out of that 30 that we actually had to go sell because the rest are covered by your email, now you're only having to sell 15 tickets. Mm-hmm. And so half of the selling is done for you.
Right.
Having a higher ticket price means nobody's going to pay $100 to bring a toddler to an event like this. Mm-hmm. So even though we've said in this adult thing, it's cost prohibitive to bring a kid. Mm-hmm. And that worked out because what happened is it wasn't just a couple coming to my farm events, but 2 couples would come because they wanted to go with their friends.
Right. And
it's a great way to sell extra tickets with a whole lot less hassle from you.
I think maybe for some people who think, oh, I could throw out a workshop and not think twice about it, this will give them things to think about. For me, I think I always viewed events and workshops as a very well thought through experience, and that was going to take more, which is why I'm limiting how many I'm doing, right? I'm not doing these every weekend. I'm doing 1 a month for a 4-month period. But get a pen and paper out. Figure out what's your topic, what would this look like for you? And this is where you really have to ask those questions. Is it worth it? If you can't get that $90 ticket and you can only sell $30 tickets, is that worth your time doing it? Could you bring in extra money doing something else? And so there have been things I've wanted to do, and Nathan and I have had to put pen to paper, and he's like, it just doesn't make sense.
And that's okay. That's the best thing. To walk away and not lose money and not lose your hair. That's
right.
great.
And there's sometimes if you're building, you're going to have to, right? There's that sacrificing aspect where you're like, hey, I've just got to keep doing this and I know it's going to pay off. But when it comes to events and workshops, I don't feel like this is an area where you say, hey, I'm willing to do it and lose money on it, because you're already probably somewhat established, right? You feel pretty confident in the topic that you're going to be discussing with people. That for me, when I view events and workshops, I view that as the next thing I'm going to do to really a pretty well-oiled farm as it is. I already have all my other incomes. This is just that next step, kind of that specialty thing that I offer that only comes around a certain time of year. I build hype around it, excitement, and then once the events are done, we have to wait a whole another year before they're going to come around again.
Well, let's make it easy for folks. Let's do the 2 or 3 exercises we did here with making the templates. Let's make it. We'll make a PDF. You can download it. Just click the link below, and then you can tailor that to yourself. But we'll make it pretty universal. But we'll cover everything that you probably should think about.
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Next episode, let's continue the conversation about diversifying your farm income stream. We'll see what we can come up with on that one.
Okay.